This is the Unscripted.
Well, guys, we got a special guest today, and Bob will be joining us in a few minutes, and so we'll.
What's up?
Here's our special. Let's introduce our special guest today, Ben.
Yeah, man. Today's the day. I'm back.
Welcome to the studio.
Yeah, live in vivo. That's how
Yeah.
you say that in Spanish. In vivo.
I don't like that. That don't sound good for our podcast.
What, in vivo?
Yeah, it just sounds all weird.
What does it sound like?
I don't know.
What? Let's make it awkward, Bob. Dane Shaw was here Sunday with his girlfriend.
Dane's got a girl,
I
yeah.
don't know if it's a girl. Whatever.
He was here with a girl.
He was here with a girl, and
Oh, praise God. Dane brought a girl. Just kidding.
she was.
Love you, Dane.
When Dane came in, because he lives over in Baton Rouge, Gonzales area,
right.
so he was here and visiting anyway. So Dane come in, and there was a young lady with him or standing there, and I didn't know that necessarily they were together. I just assumed it, and she told me her name, and I was like, so are y'all two together? And it was awkward. I was like, oh, this is awkward for y'all. I was like,
They haven't been on the first date yet.
they hadn't been on their first date yet.
No.
That makes it so. So you can tell it was just like Dane was just like deer in the
It was
headlight.
like-
Look.
What are you doing, Chris?
Yeah.
I miss these buttons right here.
And so I told Dane, I was like, hey. I was like, is it awkward? He was like, yes, man, this is really awkward. I was like,
Oh, that one
okay,
keeps going.
let's get it worse then. I was like, he snores real bad.
Right? Yeah.
He was like, quit, I'm going to get a sleep study. Just stop. And he walks off, And so,
Chris, why you doing that? Like,
yeah.
Dane, he was probably this whole time. He's probably been like,
But it's a good thing you disclosed that information.
That's a good point. I mean, the she was a nice little girl. She had, she'd went to school at Freed or somewhere up there, and I mean, just a real sweet girl. I mean, but so if the fact that
Dane's probably talked Chris up this whole time. Like he's got, KW's got such a good preacher, now and all that stuff. And
yeah, right, they were talking about Ben, and then and then when he left, he was like, and that guy, he makes a mess here. They shipped him.
Dane
in from
probably
the-
walked up and he said, "I miss Bob," and then I'm roasting him on the podcast.
Right, exactly. Well, Jay preached Sunday.
Oh, okay, good,
Yeah, Jay Galloway preached Sunday. So,
awesome.
yeah, we're still the Shepherds just want to, they're trying to get, we even talked about it. Taylor will be back in August, and so we were talking about I was like, so how do you guys want to do the rotation? I was like, so me still preach 2 Sundays a month, and then Ben and Taylor switch off. We're like, maybe we really like the idea of our men developing and stuff
Right.
like that, and so.
Well, and those Sunday nights are good too. But anyways, it's awesome that you got so much talent here.
We're blessed, and
And that's the way the church ought to be. Like
Well,
it should never be a one man show.
like our chairs. I was thinking about it. What our they don't know how late we are starting. Which is nothing new for us. But the reason why we're late this time is because our chairs. The chair I was sitting in over here, it was just steadily leaking down.
Has nothing to do with our poundage on these chairs.
That's right.
Has everything to do with the hydraulics on them.
Does it leak out when you sit on it, Ben? Okay, that makes me feel
Okay,
a lot
yeah.
better.
Yeah, I get back and the footstool over here is broke. It never was broke before.
And this
so.
one's broke. This one's broke on one side.
Today's the day to call Tyler Anderson.
Yeah, exactly.
And Roth. You got to get some new chairs in here.
Well, I
so.
believe, Bob, I believe there's a spiritual lesson in engineered failures. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, Tyler's working on that ROI when he sells you these chairs.
Well,
but you got to think about it though. These chairs were sold to us back when Ron worked here,
Yeah, so that was
and they've held some pounds up.
son. Many a Tuesdays there were some pounds parked in these chairs. But, the blessing of it is that you got a lot of things working against you. Second law of thermodynamics, I honestly believe that your phone and your computer and all that stuff have engineered failures built into it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like around the 2-year mark on your phone. It's like this thing's like it won't update.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, and you start getting messages from your cell phone company
It
about,
just starts petering out.
yeah, like you can get a new phone.
It takes so slow.
Yeah, exactly, for no cost or whatever.
It's all around money.
Yeah, well, I suppose to some degree that the church is built that way too.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, there's engineered failures.
Here's one thing that I noticed is everybody's expendable. and
Yeah.
and it should be.
That's right.
Like, but you're so important in the church that you need, your job needs to be done. You need to do your job, but you also need to train somebody how to do your job.
That's right. And so,
I don't care what it is.
yeah, and
It's important.
whatever it is. And so, there are engineered, I suppose there's a strong spirit. While that may frustrate the dickens out of me, because I want to buy one phone and it lasts 20 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I don't need to.
Buy once, cry once.
Yeah, exactly. But it just don't work that way.
Yeah.
They're constantly making it more complicated.
Did I tell y'all about the mice at the church?
At y'all's,
the country church. Yeah, well, it's like it's gotten so much better, But it's like, what was the most important job that day? It was today. This thing's got to go.
Right.
And
Yeah.
today's the day.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's today's the day. You're getting fish, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, like, I got to be there in an hour. The guy.
Podcast's gonna go early. Yeah.
Well, the drought last year here. Y'all were here for most of it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh yeah,
dude,
trying to sell a house with dead grass.
look, man, I'm telling you, and like the blooming drought was so bad last year. I don't know if you got to see the pond or not, but it got so bad. It must have just hammered our fish population, because
No.
now our fish population is like, I got a bazillion little minnows like this, a bazillion like that. And then I got some about that big, and then about that big. And the Fishing and Game Commission people and the stocking guy were like, look, you need to have all sizes to have a
Right.
healthy ecosystem. He said, what you're seeing is staggered growth.
I remember you had a healthy ecosystem, but like June and July last year, my eyes were so wet I couldn't see anything.
Bob, I'm
I'm
telling you,
crying
man,
so much from trying to leave.
it hammered us bad last year. And so we went like from July to September with only 4 days of rain, and that's just not normal in South Mississippi. And
Yeah.
so,
It's awesome to come back here to the studio. We come back to get some BBS resources and things, and but it's really awesome to see one, like, the church doing well here, even though I didn't get to see everybody, which is hard, but
maybe better.
yeah, that's right. But like, just kind of seeing, like Dan was showing me stuff around, like the visitor center. I'd already heard about the visitor center, not from you, Connection Center, not from you guys, but like some people that come back and kind of visit up at Tennessee. We've seen a few people. Then I got to see some people from KW at the Thrive Conference, and but anyways, when you get people talking about the Connection Center and you get people talking about things, and then also just there's just positive things, and it's hard whenever you leave, because you don't, it's like, what's going to happen, but it's been a real blessing to be able to continue working with KW from a distance, and
we're part of the body.
it's still part of the body.
Yeah, I mean, that's
everywhere you
like
go.
I saw this weekend this week I showed Ben and them, and that Carlos and them in Honduras. This is the second time, as far as I know, that it's ever been done. But they brought all the churches together in their little area.
Oh yeah, there are like 15 churches in the area of Dan Lee. I saw that post. That was awesome.
Like, they had I don't know what they had, if they had a conference, a seminar, but they had kids, and like I was looking at the classes, and there's like 35, 40 kids in those classes, and I thought, like, that is such an awesome benefit for.
But what's awesome too, though, is what you think about is they might be missing like some American funding.
Yeah.
But those 15 churches right there could get together and just go like really, really flood an area.
Yes, absolutely.
Flood each other and
That's
just
right.
build each other up. I mean, you think about it, they could do one day a month and still not hit every congregation.
Well,
in the year.
and and that's the blessing, is you get to see that it's just the body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why, like, even the Connection Center, there's an evolution of that. I mean, we're, poor Wes Blankenship, the guy from the Hoover Church that does our website for us now. We switched over.
No, didn't know.
Well,
anyways, go ahead. It's fine.
If you look at the KW website, it's completely new now.
Yeah.
And so and we're using it for a repository.
All these things Bob was holding back, Bob was holding back the Connection Center.
Since I moved into your desk, I use your desk, your old desk.
Yeah.
I found your list. I'm just using it.
Oh, whatever.
And that way I ain't got to worry. I can make sure that all this stuff, I just got this stuff in the pipe.
KW's like, finally, got Bob out of
when
here.
we used to do stuff like, I'm not going to get into what I did, but we used to do stuff like, sometimes I would come up and I would make something, or I would come up with some kind of way that we can improve a process.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not kidding you, that they would literally say, We're going to put that one on the shelf.
Yeah, I don't think so. Then next thing you know, 2 months later,
what they would do is they would wait till like some kind of like, hey, y'all aren't doing it, Christ, and like, all right, well, I can come up with something in a week. Well, then they would come back in 2 days, with this thing that they'd come up with, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, all right, kind of get some of the heat off of me, learn how to keep the smoke away, and.
Are you talking about your secular job?
Yes. Yeah. And so but. So I'm just using your list is what I'm doing.
Sure, okay.
And but the website
lies being.
Well, I mean,
this is a podcast full of lies.
Well, our we do our welcome before the assembly each time, and we're just trying to evolve it. Like we're just trying to really get good at capturing data. Trying to get really good at like the fish fry Saturday, and that it will just if everybody I come invite will be 1,000 people here.
Yeah, right.
And so we're going to try to capture all that data. Well,
how much tilapia did y'all order? 0. It says 0.
Yeah, exactly.
Now listen, if you want the best catfish south of the Tennessee border, north of the Tennessee border, whatever. So yeah, it's man, I'm telling you that's the one thing about it. Like my kids, they did a fish fry on the Saturday before Little Mountain Ministry Camp last year, and I'm driving our kids up, and Tom stayed back for the fish fry before he came up, and the bus breaks down, and so I'm on the side of the road for 4 hours, with the bus with a bunch of boys, and then Tom comes up there after he ate the fish fry. Anyway, that's all my boys have talked about. They're like, Dad, why did we have to miss the last fish fry? And
look, I've been telling myself for 2 weeks that you're not going to eat any fish at this fish fry.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. I just feel the temptation, the pull on me.
I'm telling you, dude. And not only that, but like the onion rings, the hush. I mean, all that stuff.
Get thee behind me, Satan.
Yeah,
I'm just concentrating. If I can get the fish, I can beat the. I know.
Yeah.
If I can do the fish, I can do the rest. And so I mean, and really. You just want it to be an event, right?
It is an event.
So we're trying to grow those things in the sense of not just the event, but how we can capture, and because today's the day.
That's right.
Right.
And that's one thing I was talking to our church about Sunday night. We did we kind of broke our Sunday nights up just like KW has, and one night we'll have a cookout. We got a good pavilion out back, and
behind the church house.
Yeah, we might meet at home or have a Q&A night, or split up into groups, have prayer groups, or share a verse night, those kind of things. And anyways, this past Sunday night, it was people thought they were getting a lesson. Well, they did. It was the whole seed lesson. Jesus didn't feed the 5,000. Yes, y'all, he fed the 5,000, but. The idea is that Jesus, in all 4 of the Gospels, this miracle is the only one that's in all 4 of the Gospels. But Jesus distributed he took the fish and the loaves, and he blessed them and he broke them and he gave them to his disciples, and the disciples distributed. And so Christ creates he is the bread of life. He is the Word of God. He gives us all the resources that we need. All he wants us to do is he wants us to distribute it, and fish fries are a way to do that. In fact, we're doing one at Capitol Hill at the end of this month.
A fish fry?
Yeah, we're doing a fish fry. We're having it on a Sunday night, at 5 p.m., and that's one thing that we were talking about. So I did the whole lesson where, you have 2 guys. You have one guy at the start to get somebody, then 2 go get somebody, then 4 go get somebody in the audience, and then pretty soon, like 4 people become 16 and then 32. Well, on a Sunday night, once you get to 32 at Capitol Hill, which is a blessing. It's like, okay, we've only got one more round of this thing, where we're going to get everybody. But when you got your core on a Sunday night and explaining to them, listen, y'all, we're not just frying fish for people. This is when you think about all these people that we're going to target and trying to get in our doors, and this is about evangelism, and it's like. We also realized, too, that, not everybody stays strong in the church, but, like, Courtney was thinking of all the people who she would love to just, like, go visit with right now. And she was like, who could I go visit for an hour or whatever? Well, she's just been talking. She knows of one person's faith who's struggling. So she said, I'm going to call them right now. I'm going to try to see them. And so it's the idea. It's like, okay, I've got 1 hour. How can I be productive for the Lord? And so wherever you're at right now, make today the day. Don't put it off till tomorrow. Today's that day of salvation, and be productive today. Do something.
When you go visit people in hospital, Bob, do you ever notice this idea, or Ben and I were talking about this at our staff meeting this morning. You know, we got somebody that's just really in a bind physically, you know, with their health. And when we left the hospital yesterday, I had one of my boys with me, and he looked at me and he's like, "Daddy," he said, "I never ever want to get in that shape." And I was like, "Well, son," I said, you got to realize that eventually, you know, we're all going to be there.
Yeah.
And he said,
earthen vessels.
yeah. And but he was like, what was the good? What I saw was, the thing was, he was like, "I can't serve the Lord like that."
Yeah.
And I said, well, and that's true. And I said, but the drawback to us not understanding what the Lord said was when he said, if you really want to lose your life, really want to gain your life, you got to lose it.
Mm-hmm.
What he's getting you to see is that this life that tries to serve me, it's just a bottomless pit.
Right.
And the more days that I put off to do something else, and the more days I put on for me, that I can never feed that beast enough. I can't ever get through enough of those things to where I'm eventually going to be like, you know what? I've done a pretty good job of taking care of me. I'm in a pretty good spot. You know what I think I can do? I think I'll go help old Bob over there, you know, just because, shoot, I'm so full. No. And what you're trying to get them to see is like the longer you put off doing the right thing, the easier it's going to be for you to say,
keep doing the wrong thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to keep doing the wrong thing.
Or just keep doing the me thing.
Yeah.
And so I like the mouse scenario. It's if you ever get a mouse in your out garage or your barn or something, and if you just let it keep coming, like all he's going to do is bring his friends. It's just going to compound. And so if you feed mice the dog food or the chicken feed or whatever it is, they're just going to keep showing up.
That's right.
And that's it's just gonna continue to grow, and then next thing you know, you're gonna have a huge problem. And
and you have got to nip it in the bud.
That's right.
You know the Bogalusa Church south of us has reached out to us and wanted to know if we could help them fill in twice a month with a preacher. Well, you know.
Yeah, we talked about some of that.
Yeah, well, one of the guys is that's going down there is Bassett, John Bassett, and I made a sign up genius. And just for them too, so they'll have a name, they can see, you know, how far,
who's coming,
you know, and like if they're going to write a check, for example, they got a name, right. You know, just logistical stuff. And I told Bassett Sunday night, because we had, you know, it was Cinco de Mayo,
yeah,
Sunday night,
de Mayo,
and well, you didn't like me saying in vivo a while ago, so I thought maybe I'd just try to, you know, hillbilly it a little bit.
This guy goes, hey, Sunday morning, he goes, you know what day is? I said, what? He says, Red Letter Day. I said, what's a red letter day? He's like, it's red letter day, whatever. He's like, and it's also my 45th anniversary. And I just thought, okay, whatever. Well, you know what a red letter day is?
No. Anniversary, maybe?
So it's a day on a calendar that was marked by the government. It's a red letter day. It's a special day or whatever. Oh, it's just it's Cinco de Mayo is all that it was.
Oh,
and so, anyways, he just threw me off that he was saying.
I cut all them off on my calendar because I got mad because the gay ones and stuff would show up so much.
I know, man.
So I just cut all of them off. So now
on your digital calendar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chris about like Mother's Day.
Yeah. I have to go back and put it on there.
Hey, today is Tuesday the 7th.
Yeah.
Mother's Day's this Sunday, guys.
Hurry up. Don't mess it up.
Today's the day. Get something for your mama.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
remind me Saturday, get something for my mama.
Well right. Bassett
today.
was talking to us, and he was talking to me, and it's so funny because we had a wedding shower for Abby and Mitchell.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And, you know, Abby, you know, started dating Mitchell here, and, you know, was eventually, you know, converted here at KW.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's just a great story. Mitchell's a great guy. We love him. Mm-hmm. And now he's recently just moved back to, you know, to get a job. But Abby's a member here still, you know. Yeah. So anyways.
Wonderful.
Great. Yeah. I mean, she's done a great job with the student center, and just a great success story. Anyways, so Jessica said Sunday morning that she was coming down the hallway, and Chip had said something to her or whatever about something, and then him and Bassett were standing there talking. Well, so Jessica, you know, Chip, you know, like kind of stopped talking to Bassett. Hey, Jessica, you know, da-da-da-da-da, and goes on. Well, Jessica's still instinctively listening to what's going on behind her.
Right.
And so she said, Chip told him, like, hey, we're having that shower tonight, you know, for Abby and Mitchell. You know, Bassett shows up to the wedding shower. Guess what he brings?
Did he bring something? Think he's gonna get wet?
He brought a pack of diapers. To the wedding shower, and because he told Chip, he's like, I got to get on this Realm thing. He's like, what do you mean? He was like, I just think
Realm's the app that KW uses.
Yeah, I was like, I gotta get it. I'm just not getting. He's like, I thought it was a baby shower, and he says,
he told me, he was like, is this not a baby shower? And I was like, well, you know, you can leave the I mean, eventually they'll get to it.
Yeah.
It'll come on down the line. You don't know how quick they'll get to the baby shower.
I mean,
to have a baby, so you're gonna beat them to it.
Yeah, but I was talking to Bassett, and he was like, I was like, hey, you know, so we got this, you know, scenario down here in Bogalusa, kind of giving him this rundown, and he was like, yeah, I'm gonna go with Alan. So Alan had already solicited Bassett to go with him.
Amen.
For one of the Sunday, because Alan's speaking this Sunday, you know, in Bogalusa.
Mother's Day.
Yeah, Alan's going down for Sunday, and so Frederick is going to.
Listen, guys, we're talking about two dudes who've been Christians less than 18 months.
Yeah, I mean,
Alan's less than a year. What about Bassett?
I'd have to sit down and think.
I know
It kind of runs together. But
it all
very new Christians. Yeah, and so Bassett.
It's a joy when you got so many new converts that it's like, okay, how long ago was that one? You know, whatever.
Yeah, well, Bassett is going to go now with Alan, and I was like, well, you do the first Sunday in June. And he was like, well, I just need to work my way up to it. I was like, Bassett, that's a month. Mm-hmm. And like if you watch him on Thursday nights here with our Thursday night group, I mean, he does a great job, doesn't he, Ben? Absolutely. I mean, he's sitting there talking to him about these things and giving him these great encouragement, like Bassett. The longer somebody holds your hand,
that's right,
the longer you will get used to it. And
that's the way it happened with me. I mean, I think I've told my story on here or whatever, but Carol Ray Smith called me on a Friday. He said, you need a preacher on a Sunday. And I said, I'm not a preacher. He said, that's not what I heard. And they just Sunday morning at 9 and 10. Mm-hmm. And he hung up the phone.
Yeah, and that's the best way you can do it.
Got disconnected. And you know, my sermon before was Hear My Send Me. And that's the idea. Okay, is it Hear My Send Me 3 months from now? Hear My Send Me next year? Or hear My Send Me when I'm in a better season in my life? Look, God told Abraham, he said, get out of your country. Go to the land I'm going to show you. And Abraham, when he did it by faith. He told Noah, you build this ark.
And God's going to take care of everything.
He's going to take care. He takes care of everything. And
you think about this parable here of I was thinking about this parable of the vine dresser. I think there's an awesome thing that we miss here. Like in Matthew 21 and verse 33. Now I know Jesus is kind of kicking the Pharisees in the teeth with this one. I get it, right? Mm-hmm. But I want you to think about the way he does this. He says, here another parable. Verse 33. There was a certain landowner who planted a vineyard. So let's just think about this, okay? There's a guy that owns the land. He sets a hedge around it. The guy digs a wine press. The guy builds a tower, and he just leases it to the vine dressers and goes away to a far country. Mm-hmm. So the guy that owns the land, builds the wine press, plants the vineyard, plants the tower, he gets everything ready for him.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's all the money, all the work, everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like, you know, I mean, when I used to show up to build a house, it would literally be woods. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's just a blue. I've gotten used to it now, but when I first came down here, I mean, like I'd never been somewhere with so many pines, and I remember thinking like, they got those pine trees near their house. You would never do that in Virginia, never, because that will end up sleeping with you one day.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's just common here, you know, to have a 40-foot pine that's 18 inches around in your front yard. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, like this guy,
10 foot from your house.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. And this guy, he's done all the work. You know, it's not like he's showing up and he's like, okay, now you get this guy's done all the work for these guys.
Yeah, so it's like when you build a house or whenever you get a house, like when you buy a house, do you want it turnkey? You know, there's a difference. There's a turnkey versus a fixer-upper.
Yeah.
And so
you know that.
Right. And so the landowner here, he's got a turnkey house. What a turnkey is, all you have to do is put the key in, turn it, and it unlocks, and everything's ready for you.
Yeah, you're just ready to do it. I mean, when we moved down here, that was one of the things was like, should we, you know, because, you know, I'm tight, and should we get a fixer-upper? And Jessica was like, look, like, I know, you know, how you are with these, and I'm not a procrastinator, you know, but she just knows that it will literally consume me till I get a job done. And she's like, I don't want to go through that process.
I remember Chris, he had this budget on the house. He's like, I'm not spending this much more. And he was within less than like 2% of his budget.
Well, he got it at the right time.
Yeah, he got it at the right time. But anyways, I was like, Chris, you're moving your family.
Yeah, I know. And it's just
from
hard
18 hours away.
Yeah, it's just hard to get through those things in your mind,
$3,000.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought he is.
Well, and that's just the way it is.
That's the way it is.
And so this guy, he's got this vine. I think about, so I know the parable of this. The parable of the story that Jesus is telling is that, the vine dressers take your servants, beat them, kill them, stone them. The servant,
the Jews, the prophets, all these things, and finally his son. Yeah.
Yeah. I get that. That's the painting that he's kind of showing there. That and that's why he says at the beginning. He even ask him. In verse 40. Whenever the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to these vine dressers? What do you think the logical conclusion that he will do after he's got it ready for them? He's built the boundaries. He's planted everything they need for fruit. He's built them a tower of defense. All the things that you would think of that you would need. You need to know your limits, to need to know what your fruit's supposed to be, to know that you can defend your position. He's got all that ready for them, and they kill every single one when the guy is really just saying, this is the reasonable thing that I should get in return. I should send my delegate, my servant, my worker down there. He should just be able to get the money, get the fruit, get the whatever, and bring it back to me. That is a reasonable expectation. And y'all beat them, kill them, stone them. And even when he says, okay, I'm even willing to give him a little grace, and I'll send my son just so you can make sure, just in case there's any confusion, and they still do it. The whole idea behind it is that he tells them, what do y'all think you should do? In verse 41, they said, well, he'll destroy those wicked men miserably and lease his vineyard to another vine dresser who will render him the fruits in their season.
Kind of like David and Nathan.
Yeah, that's right.
He's like, you're the man.
That's right. And he said, verse 43, therefore I say to you, the kingdom of God will be taken from you and given to a nation bearing the fruits of it. Well, what you're seeing here is, Bob, this is the same idea. Today's the day.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other day like today. That God, we are the plan right now. There's no plan B for the church. I understand that. But individually, Bob is the plan today.
Mm-hmm.
Individually, Ben is the plan today. What are you saying, Chris? What I mean by that is that, Esther 4, this whole 14, when Mordecai comes to her and he's like, look, God's already promised deliverance to the Jews. And if you hold your peace, if you don't do something about it, you and your family will perish. But God he will deliver.
He's going to deliver Israel.
And we'd like to think of Esther as kind of like plan A, but Esther could have been like plan triple Z.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how many in the pipe.
Yeah. Plan P.
Yeah, that could have, she could have been asterisk pounds,
whatever.
One of them fancy.
And you look, all the people who God was trying to get to do something. When we were at Decatur at the Thrive Conference, and I was teaching a lesson.
What's that?
That was it. It was at it's just a conference where it's just a boost for the church. It's just a weekend thing. It's actually just a Friday night and a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody who attends, though, Decatur, it's a free event, but Decatur strokes a check for Little Mountain Ministry Camp, $10 a head for whoever comes to the event. And so, it's just a big promotion for the camp just to help fundraise for it or whatever. Well, anyways, while I'm up there teaching, I'm teaching in a class, I'm going at the same time Willie Franklin is, and so Willie's in the auditorium and I'm in a side class, and so there's like 12 people in my class, and which is fine with me. Jesus changed the world, with 12.
Amen.
But anyways, there were some people from this area that came up, and one of those, I'm just gonna name them, Sean and Lena came up.
Okay.
And so anyways, Lena just starts crying during the lesson or whatever, and so, I was talking to them afterwards, and anyways, he's like, yeah, you made Lena cry or whatever. I was like, why are you crying? And she just said, well, she's like, it's just a joy, just to hear other people who were doing the work. And she said, me and Sean just, we feel like we're the only ones doing evangelism where we're at. And I said, that's all right. It's not all right, but you're the one, you're the plan. And so it's your responsibility. Don't it's just keep going.
Right.
And it's a 1 Corinthians 15:58 type thing, that you be steadfast and immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor not in vain. And so it's it's worth it. But today, we can get down, we can get all these things going on, but you just got to do it, and you just got to keep going. And so wherever you're at, it's what are you doing for the Lord? Well, change it today. There's changes I got to make. I've been trying to get back in a workout routine, and it's like, what are you waiting on? Just do it. And but
life gets in the way of all those things.
That's right.
Right, and you end up having to. You told me a long time ago, and I remember that when you say yes to something, you say no to something else.
Yeah, and
you have to end up.
Chip taught me that.
Well, you have to work on those priorities. And God, it's not like God. When you have a baby, you know what I mean. We went and saw Tyler and Jana last night, and that
I know I got to eat Jessica's apple pie last night.
Well, I'm just saying, like you think about you go see Tyler and Jana, and you realize that their card's been upended, even though they're basically 2 years into a new one, with Nora.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now they got another one in the mix,
yeah.
and their card's been upended again. And it's not that, and you love them. And I'm not even saying there's any kind of negative issue going on with them, but like I was talking to them and I was just listening to her yesterday, and you love them to death, and you realize that they're going through the process that everybody else. You just want to be there to love on them and help them and hold them and kiss them and pray with them and all that stuff. But you realize that the only thing what they're going through is something that everybody else has had to go through and make those spiritual decisions. Like I've got to do today.
That's right.
I cannot wait for this.
Yeah, we called them, and Courtney sent them a text, said, "Hey, are y'all up for a visit with the baby, next week?" And she's like, "Your bed's ready for you." And so they wanted us to stay the night or whatever. Well, so I was teasing Jana this morning. She's taking care of Nora and feeding the baby, so she's doing everything. And I was like, "What time's biscuits and gravy gonna be ready?" So I was messing with her.
Right.
Well, I was doing all this.
I'm getting kind of hungry.
I was doing all this joking around and stuff, and then because we were, it was a good little visit last night, but we were I was joking around with them. Well, then next thing you know, like we got to leave, and then Jana had biscuits in the oven. I'm like, "What are you doing?" Like, you're crazy. I'm just messing with you. But
well, it's that whole scenario, and how do you juggle and balance all those things?
Mm-hmm.
And there's just always, Bob. You look at
it takes the juggling and balancing to get better at juggling and balancing.
Yeah, and
so start juggling and balancing.
When I was working in the shop, me and a guy were one night, my boss, we were trying to take a machinist hammer, ball peen hammer, and flip it and catch it on our finger, right? And we had these long. This is like we were in our early.
Sounds like what Carson and his buddies be doing at Bowling Farms today.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
goofing off.
Well, my boss come by and caught us doing that. He's like, "What are y'all doing?" And Barry come by. He was kind of like chewing our
chirping. Yeah. Well, I don't know what to tell him.
Yeah. And I remember thinking like, well, the machine's running. You know what I mean? Like it's making chips. Well, Barry took the hammer, okay? He took the hammer and he flipped it twice and caught it on the end of his finger. And I said, "Barry, I bet you didn't practice that at home." He laid the hammer down and walked away. And no more words said, right? And you know what that meant?
Oh yeah, so Barry's the boss.
Barry's the boss.
Yeah, you didn't practice that at home, did you? He practiced it while his machine was making chips over the years.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly. I'm trying to get it down to one flip and catch it on my finger. And it's just the idea that he had to get through the one flip to get to the two flip.
Yeah.
Right. And so ultimately we ain't talking about flipping hammers.
Yeah.
We're talking about
Barry just roasted himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me show y'all how to do this.
Well,
twice.
He was so fun. You could always bait him into doing these things. Like one night we were trying to get the spindle to do something, and I was spinning it, and I was like, "Man, I got that to 200 RPMs." And Barry come by, he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Something you can't do." And so he'd reach up there and he would spin it. I was like, "Psst." Like, come on, Graham. You could bait him into these things, right? Well, and
like a 14-year-old.
Well, Barry
kid.
was a little short guy, so he was always, kind of like, trying to
short man syndrome.
Yeah. But here's the thing: is that, man, like, you got to figure, like, you look back at the history of the church, right? And when you look at like Acts 13, when Paul says, let's go back and visit the churches.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say, let's go back and wait for a convenient time, right? When he's sending the letter to the Corinthians to say, like, I need you guys to get this money together, so when I get there, There ain't no hustling around getting. And he's saying that for a lot of reasons, right? They're like, I ain't got time to wait. I've got a plan, and part of this plan is I've got to get to the churches, get the money, and I got to get back to the poor saints in Jerusalem is what he uses as his illustration. He's got to get back there with the money because I need to get there before Pentecost. There's a time when I can be the most effective, and I think the way that I can be the most effective is doing these things. So everybody before us has had to sit down and ask those questions about how we're going to do it. The difference is the ones that are successful are the ones that do it. It's not that you fell down it's not that you tried and failed, right? You're going to have failures. I mean, haven't you thought of things to do and or tried to do something and just fall flat on your face?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
And it was roughly 14 days that God, children of Israel, he's separating things out and he's breaking down Egypt. But he comes to them and he says, hey, Lord speaks to Moses and Aaron and says, this month shall be your beginning of months. It's going to be the first month of the year. Speak to the congregation of Israel, saying on the 10th of this month, every man's going to take for himself a lamb. You got 10 days, you're going to take a lamb. On the 14th of this month, you're going to kill it, and we're going to walk out of this place. Yep. So you got 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a great power in setting goals and time frame. I mean, this morning our staff.
What I'm saying is God didn't say, hey, in 2 years from now you're going to be doing this.
And that's what I'm saying. Is
right.
That's why you got to set some real. Like this morning when we rolled out our website on a Sunday night a while back, the AV thorn in our side bit us, and it hadn't bit us in forever. But it just decided, you know what?
Yeah,
I couldn't do it that night. So what we did today was we talked about, okay, well, by the end of the summer, we should have all the bugs worked out of the website, in the sense of like how we're using it, what we're doing with it, all the ways that we're using it for ministry. And so we just need to revisit that. I said, let's put it on the calendar now. That way we have a goal and we can know that we're working towards that. And we can
no matter what's going on crazy through the summer months, it's like we're going to hit it.
We're going to use that Sunday night to talk about the website, how we're using it for the service of the Lord. And that way we got a goal to do it on, because if not, it'll just be one of them things that you just kind of set out there on a shelf.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of things that you can set on a shelf, Bob, but
and some things people do need to put on the shelf.
There's a lot of things.
You need to put some things on the shelf so that you can start prioritizing the Lord. And I mean, I know of people right now. I know of 2 people in the last 5 years that were vice presidents of companies and have made this. And I'm talking about, we'll just say loads of money. All right, successful family businesses, and I know of 2 women who said, me doing this, I don't think this is what's right for my family with God. I'm going home to be with my children. And I mean, you talk about hard, tear-jerking decisions, but they said, I'm going to put these millions, and I'm going to put them money at the end of the day. It's not worth it.
Well, really, if you think about it, Bob, even if because we can convince ourselves with those priorities. Let's just say that at the end of the day, you could give another $100,000 to the church at the end of the year. Let's just say that's your number, right? That seems like an outstanding number to me, right?
Right.
So if I could give $100,000 to the Lord and His work, Bob, my father owns a cattle on 1,000 hills.
All of them on 1,000 hills.
That's right. And so what that means is that it's already his anyways. So if he needs to get something done, then he'll do it. I mean, like I literally got to leave here, and the guy's bringing the fish for the pond.
Yeah, 27 minutes.
I know. Right. And the guy's bringing the fish for the pond, and then there's a guy coming right after that to move another machine in the shop.
Yeah.
And that machine was donated to us, and it didn't require anything. And
turnkey.
And so, all that stuff is because the Lord wants to. I just believe the Lord wants to see the Next Tech Academy grow. And
it's exactly right. And there are some things though, but you had to make the decision to build the shop to start with.
Yeah,
and I remember when you thought you had funding to start with, you could have give up. You had that funding to start with, and that funding that rug got pulled out from under you, and you said, I still got to do this. And so, I remember those conversations and those prayers and praying for those things and then just kind of seeing those evolve. I mean, I remember the first day that my boys put their hands on a mill, you know, and on a lathe. And I've got the pictures of, you know, of you doing those things and those, as you know, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of things that, you know, Chris makes fun of me being for document stuff, but there's a lot of things I document that other people do, you know, and there's, and it's important, but you got to start somewhere. So some things are turnkey, but there's some things that you're going to have to dig and you're going to have to scratch, but you're going to have to chip at it. There's a Chinese proverb that says, "Those that move mountains move them one stone at a time." And so there's some things that you have to do. And so if you're waiting for the ministry that's there, that's turnkey for you, it's just not going to be there. I talked to a lot of guys, you know, just kind of over the years, they kind of want advice and some of those things, and I love those things. But there's sometimes where you just have to really be real with some of these guys, because what they want is they want to be at a 300 member congregation, you know, bringing in $100,000 a year and working with the youth group that's got, you know, 75 kids in it, you know, and doing all these things. Well, you got to establish yourself and prove that you might have to work with a congregation of 20 people to start with. You might have to do it for 5 years, you know.
I'll tell you the lesson that I'm learning, Bob, with the Next Tech, you know, is that I am telling myself constantly that do not worry about the money. Yeah. And I am learning that. And I'm what I mean by that is, like, don't try to scrimp and scrounge and do all these other little things and all this and that and other that you know, to some degree is just a big waste of your time, when you can, at the end, when you're going to, like this week, they're coming, and I could tell you the story of how this is happening, but they're coming to upgrade all the controls in the shop, all the controls in the shop. And we're talking thousands of dollars. And Bob, I don't want to get into the details of it, but, and I'm not saying through any kind of donation or anything like that, but it is going to cost us nothing now.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote the check. I literally wrote the check. But the way the money got here cost me nothing.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that it was donated money. You know, I'm not saying that. And I could just tell you the story of how the money got here. But I'm just learning that if we need to do this, like Friday, I had a shop in town call me 3 times. Mm-hmm. Right? We were going to do a tour with them. They want to come to us now. They want to come and sit with us. I had a shop 2 weeks before that said that they took me to their shop, to their machine shop, and said, look at our guys when we left. And they said, we got 2 guys in here. One guy's not a machinist. One guy is. He said, we got this one guy just kind of repairing the molds and stuff like that. And this guy is the only machinist that we have. He said, I'm looking to have to hire somebody from another country. I mean, that's how bad it is. Now, mm-hmm. you talking about hiring it
from another company, another country.
Yeah. And he was like, how many of your kids can, and so I sat down with all the parents like last Friday night, and I said, you know, we're not thinking big enough. And I got to sit down with all them parents and describe in great detail how the Lord can do great things, right? And you get to have this great, powerful, spiritual Bible study with them. And you know what you're doing? It is no longer a what if. It's a what's happening scenario. And you know what you get to do with those things, Bob? You get to provide evidence.
Mm-hmm. Substance and evidence.
Substance and evidence.
Yeah.
You know, that's what Hebrews 11 is. It's a credit check.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. It's Hebrews 11 is your TransUnion Equifax score for God. Like, look at, he's got a perfect credit score. You know, that's what he's wanting you to see looking backwards. Look at all the things that I said and all the things that happened. And so
it's both sure and steadfast. It's an anchor for the soul. Hebrews 6. Yeah.
Yeah. Get today, right? I mean, get busy today. The church, if they need anything, Bob, is they just need proof that God can still do great things with little people. He doesn't want to do little things with big people. He wants to do big things with little people. If there's any lesson that we should learn from the scriptures, is that that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, and that's what he's done this whole time. I mean, you think about this, like, it was Hannah's prayer, you know, for
read it this morning
for Samuel, you know, and look at how great of a prophet Samuel was, you know, and the things that God had him do. But she had to put her life as a mama on the back burner because of her keeping that vow to the Lord and giving that to him. Here's Hebrews 3. This is powerful. Verse 7, therefore, as the Holy Spirit says, today, if you'll hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as in the rebellion, in the day of trial in the wilderness where your fathers tested me, tried me, and saw my works 40 years. Therefore, I was angry with that generation and said, they always go astray in their heart. And they have not known my ways, so I swore my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. Beware, brethren, lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief and departed from the living God. But exhort one another daily while it's called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. That sin, the deceitfulness of it, is it tells me that okay, I got to stay in this, and I need to keep this on the main burner and keep God in the back burner, and that's the challenge. We it was such a joy. We Sunday night. It was after church, and a little girl come up to me and asked a question. She said, "What's grace?" She's 9 years old, and so I'm having that conversation with her up front, and I went to school.
What'd you tell her? What'd you say before you eat?
Yeah, I used to. Me and her uncle used to terrorize her mama. Anyways, her mom was Lauren, and she's one of the best women in the world. Anyway, she married my cousin, so now she's kinfolk. But anyway, so we're talking about that, and there was another conversation that was going on between a sister in Christ and a guy who the church has been working on, and anyway, she just asked this question. He's been telling me, he's like, we need to get together, and what he's been saying is he's saying, I'm putting off my baptism. He's like, yeah, we need to get together. He knows the truth. Mm-hmm. And we've had that conversation for a while, and he just didn't know. But anyways, there's been Courtney and this other family's been saying, hey, Joe, don't put that baptism off. Don't put it off. Well, one of the sisters asked him, said, what are you waiting on? And anyways, and he said, I'm going to get it done. So I sat down with him, and we're chatting for a minute, and he's like, we need to get together. And he said, I know this is something I don't need to put off. He's like, I want to do it this week. And I said, we can do it now. And he's like, well, I want to bring some shorts and have a towel and those kind of things. I said, Joe, we've got all that. I said, come up here. I said, will it make you feel better if you get to see this? So he's been coming to church since the fall, but he's never walked up there to see the baptistry or any of that kind of stuff. And man, I'm telling you, a guy who came back to the Lord, like within the last 24 months, has just been kicking it. And in fact, he's going to fill in for me at jail ministry whenever I'm gone next week. And
going to Tanzania?
No, we're doing a family trip.
Oh.
Anyways, so he's going to be teaching the gospel, but like Lee has, like, we had a hot water heater that went out. He changed it. He's up there at night. When the baptistry stuff goes out. He's a young Dan Doodah, all right? And so anyway, so Lee's doing all this kind of stuff, but he's been going with me with jail ministry and all this kind of stuff. Well, Lee grew up in the church, and he was going, and he was living for himself at one time, and put things on the back burner, and the Lord just restored a whole bunch of stuff for him. Lee had the water warm. So when Joe felt that water, man, he's like, oh man, that feels good. I said, yeah. And I said, Joe, I said, you don't have to have a pair of shorts. And I was telling him about the whole thing. I said, come back here, you can see the towels and everything. I said, I got a 2X, man, you can put on. The guy hadn't been to church in 49 years, starting this past fall, and I know you probably saw the post, but we posted on our podcast thing too. And it's just the power of the gospel. But that guy's conversion, we immersed him into Christ Sunday night, but that guy's conversion, it started with prayers, and it started with a neighbor. And Dusty is his neighbor and is a farmer. And anyways, don't have any kids. He'll be married 50 years coming up this fall, and he was somebody had him sprinkled in the Catholic Church when he was a baby. His parents did, and he didn't really go to church much. And he said it's been 49 years. And so you think, like, I think maybe when he was like 11 years old, last time he went to church, something like that. Well, long and short of it, when he comes out, like, he said, man, I'm so glad I did this today. And the next thing he said was, he said, you know what I've been praying for? He said, is that I can be just a little light that will point somebody to Jesus. And he said, if in whatever time that God gives me left on this earth, he said, I'm going to be faithful in this church. And he said, in whatever time that God gives me left, this is what he told me to start with. He said, what are you going to ask me? He said, because I'm not real big on speeches. Well, then he sits down on the front pew afterwards, and everybody's loving on him. You know, it's 8:30 at night. You know, the church had done gone home an hour and a half earlier or whatever. Well, he starts talking, you know, and, you know, you just get him comfortable. And so he starts talking about how thankful he was or whatever. He's like, but the last thing that he was saying was, he said, you know, what I'm praying for is that God will let me be a little light. And he said, if on my time left on this earth, he said, if I could just bring 2 people to Jesus. I mean, and that's his goal. And so I'm just up there just.
And you know, most people say, if I could just bring 1.
I know. He said, if I can just bring 2 people to Jesus. And so that's what he's saying. And what's happening is he's already thinking about 2 people. Mm-hmm. And how all this started too, Chris. It just goes back to the Next Tech program. Because Carson was working for that farmer who was a neighbor, and that farmer was going to put Joe up to work it and doing the grain cart when Carson wasn't available to do it. So he put Carson up there. He put Joe in there with Carson to train Joe. So you got a 16-year-old training a 60-year-old.
Joe's the guy that was baptized. Carson starts talking to Joe about the Bible, and they had big differences in that cab that day this past fall. And Joe got to the point that he said, young man, he said, respectfully, he said, I come up here to learn how to drive this tractor and not to learn about the Bible. And so guess what that did to Carson's faith back then? He was struggling. Mm-hmm. You know, he's like, Dad, I said, son, I said, you planted the seed. I said, don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. I said, you had 60,000 pounds worth of corn in that. I said, but what you planted, I said, is the best seed that could ever be planted. And weighed a lot more.
And so guess what? Next day, within the week, Dusty has him up in the combine, teach him how to run the combine. Guess what Dusty talking to him about? Joe, you ever been baptized? And I'm telling you what, this dude, Dusty's country as can be, but he's really been stepping it up, man. And he asked, Joe, you ever been baptized? He said, no. He said, Joe, he said, man, he's like, you got to come to Jesus. And anyway, so he starts talking to him about those things. Well, within 3 or 4 weeks, old Joe starts coming to church. And, man, this is what we've been working on the church with about, you know, is about, listen, today's the day that you got to get up and you got to make people feel welcome. And, man, we're starting to create an environment to where people are, they're, you know how KW is, you know, and they're just making people feel welcome. And it's like, this is home. This is family. And so Joe and his wife have just felt at home for the last several months, and it's just created an environment for him to keep learning.
Is she a member of the church?
Not what we would describe, you know. So Dusty's had that conversation with her, you know, and so it's he said, you know, I think she was baptized years ago, but it was in a denomination, and anyways, so they're working on that, and she said she feels confident with her baptism.
They'll work through that.
That's right. It'll work. And guess what? She wasn't with him that night. And he said, I really hope that she's not mad at me. He's like, but I had to do this today. And he didn't make it that Sunday morning to church. But this was like one of his first Sunday nights ever to come. And he told me, he said, you know, my plan is just to be this is what he told me a few weeks ago. My plan is just to be a quiet mouse at your church. You know, he's like, I want to be baptized or whatever. And so I finally, you know me, I'm not real bold or whatever in a lot of ways. And so I preached a sermon not long ago and it said, listen, like, you don't have a choice anymore as far as whether or not you're gonna work for the Lord. Like what people don't understand is that when you're baptized in Christ, you're added to His body. Mm-hmm. There's a responsibility. So what if your right hand just said, hey, I'm taking off today? Right. What if your right eye said, hey, I'm not going to work today?
Yeah, especially going down the road.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, now sometimes it's like, man, this thing's just hurting me, you know, like
Right.
my leg starts cramping up. It's like, what in the world, you know, this thing's jacking up or whatever. Sorry, kicking cameras over here. Come on, Bob. I haven't been in the studio in a while. So, but it's like, you know, what if you just decide, okay, I'm just not going to show up? You don't have a choice. When when Christ cleanses you, he adds you to his church. He adds you to the body. You don't have a choice, and that's part of counting the cost.
Amen.
And
well, your last decision you ever make is I'm gonna follow Jesus.
Should be your first and your last, and it's today's the day. And so whatever it is that you need to change, I mean, he's talking to Israel. You got to change something. And every day it's got to be that way.
Listen, I appreciate the time, and I would really, but the guy is there now to put the fish in my pond, and I have got to go. And
Chris,
so,
Jesus said, "I'll make you fishers of men."
well, and you know what? I'm going to go fish on this man. He's actually the reason why.
I know. Listen, so let me say this. Chris called him beforehand. He said, "Listen," he said, "You remember that spot I told you that I baptized people?"
Yeah.
He said, "That's where I want you to put them fish." So, y'all, we're gonna let Chris go fish for a soul.
Yeah, I mean, I got this guy square. He's selling me the fish at cost.
Hey,
you know.
listen, that my supervisor, he used to have this thing put up at the sheriff's office. He said, "You got to know your opponents better than know themselves," and he says he always had this statement: "You got to strike while the iron's hot." And so the iron's hot at Chris's pond, so he's got to go strike.
Yeah.
We love y'all. I'm glad to be back, and
Amen.
sorry we'll be remote again.
That's
So,
fine.
yeah.
Love you guys.
Love y'all. See you.